Americans' Trust or Lack Thereof in Public Institutions by Brian Farkas, IDS 4500. I first began my railroad career on May 6, 1996 at the Consolidated Rail Corporation, otherwise known as Conrail. I started as a brakeman, then worked my way up to locomotive engineer. Throughout the years, I also rose through the ranks in my union, the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. I have served as the local chairman and legislative representative in Indianapolis, then moved up to the Indiana State Legislative Board chairman, while also serving as vice president of the Indiana AFL-CIO from 2014 to 2018. Currently served as full-time general chairman, representing locomotive engineers in 9 states on CSX and Alstom, which was formerly Bombardier. Throughout the years as a rank-and-file member and later union official, I have observed a growing distrust among the rank-and-file membership when it pertains to institutions, whether it be the government, banking, or even the union. These experiences have led me to question whether the internet could be a source of misinformation that foments distrust in the union and other public institutions. The following questions have come to mind that will be addressed throughout this presentation. Number 1. Does easy access to the internet cause the general public to distrust the media? If so, what are some strategies to counteract misinformation found online? 2. Did past innovations in how we communicate play any role in public's distrust of their institutions as a whole? If mass communication aids in the erosion of public trust in institutions, could the same medium be used to regain it? And 3. Given the ability to obtain and/or spread false information on the internet, what are some ways that the public institutions can counter misinformation in order to regain or retain public trust? In order to consider questions that relate to how people allow their personal biases to interfere with rational thinking, the immediate thought was to find polling data that can adequately capture various demographics in order to find patterns that may find trends that are useful for this research. Certain questions remain when it comes to the ability to overcome one's own biases to make informed, rational decisions. Does media consumption affect voting patterns? Do minds change based on information received from social media? Or does social media act to confirm one's own bias? Does one's religious or non-religious affiliation affect one's ability to make rational decisions based on information provided to them from the same source? And finally, do people possess the capacity to change deeply held views on any particular subject? Which brings us back to our attempt to answer the 3 questions originally posed in the beginning of this video. The following is a summary of the data found in the Pew Research Center's report from November 8, 2021, entitled Beyond Red versus Blue, the Political Typology. A choice was made to narrow down the fields into 4 categories: political engagement, gender, religion and society, COVID-19, and demographics. The data is taken from a sampling of those who profess to be faith and flag conservatives to the other side of the political coin, the progressive left. As one may suspect, the typical answers to many of the questions score higher in both extremes, as will be explained later. One of the survey questions posed was whether government and political affairs were followed by the participants. This question was asked by Pew between July 26 and August 8, 2021. Faith and flag conservatives polled higher than the progressive left at 55% to 44% respectively. One could possibly extrapolate that those who have a higher assessment of their own political knowledge may actually be experiencing what is known as the Dunning-Kruger effect, or DKE, which was discussed in one of the articles in my research entitled, When You Know Nothing But Think You Know Everything. The author explained the phenomenon known as Dunning-Kruger effect, again, DKE, which occurs, quote, when your own incompetence prevents you from seeing your own incompetence, end quote. Cornell University's Dunning and Kruger developed their study that led to DKE from a humorous story about a man who robbed 2 banks in Pittsburgh in 1995. The man, MacArthur Wheeler, made no effort to disguise himself while committing his robberies in broad daylight. While he was apprehended by the authorities, the police showed him the surveillance footage from the bank, to which he replied, "But I wore the juice." You see, Mr. Wheeler was under the impression that his image would become invisible on tape if he rubbed his face with lemon juice. Dunning and Kruger argued that, quote, "when people are incompetent in the strategies they adopt to achieve success and satisfaction, they suffer a dual burden. Not only do they reach erroneous conclusions and make unfortunate choices, but their incompetence robs them of the ability to realize it." End quote. In the interest of saving time and keeping this video within the assigned time frame, I will skip to the conclusion of my research. Spoiler alert, the internet, which includes social media, is not the root cause of the public's distrust in their institutions. Throughout our history in the United States, the media has engaged in some misinformation tracing back to George Washington that affected public trust in the media, so it's not a new phenomenon. The apex of public trust was actually in a small window of time between the 1950s and 1960s. We're not getting any worse when it comes to believing in conspiracies either. They have always been around us. Instead, it appears that the erosion of trust may be due to our own lack of cognitive dissonance. We owe it to ourselves and society to train our brains to think critically. Applying these skills to handle information we receive from the media and other public institutions will help bridge the gap between trust and distrust of our institutions. These actions will go a long way towards restoring trust in each other and ultimately in our institutions.